This video is an introduction to something called the 5D process. For this video, you'll need a calculator and you'll need the note sheet. Alright, so the 5D process is a process that we are going to be using to help us solve word problems. There are 5 steps to the 5D process that we need to know. Step number 1 is called describe or draw. So, in this first step, you're going to draw a picture or describe the key information in the problem. I'll show you what that means when we do our first problem. Step number 2, after you draw a picture to kind of help you, is you're going to define, your variables. So you're trying to figure out, like, how many things am I trying to figure out? 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is do. You're actually going to do the math. All right, step number 4 is decide. You're going to decide when you're doing your math if your answer is too big or too small or if it's just right. And the 5th step is you're going to declare, which means you're going to state your answer in a sentence. So these are the steps that we're going to use to help us solve some word problems. This page contains a chart that is going to help us organize our information when we're working with a story problem. At the very top of our chart, we're always going to have some bullet points where we describe and draw our picture. Down in the middle, here's where we're going to define our variables, and we're going to kind of be splitting this column up. There's a do column where we're going to do all our math, and then there's a decide column where we're going to decide is our answer too big, too small, or if it's correct. And then at the bottom, that's where we're always going to declare our sentence. You'll see what an example looks like in the next, coming up here. All right, here's our first problem. So it says the perimeter of a rectangle is 120 feet. The length is 10 feet more than the width. How long are the sides of the rectangle? So the very first thing that I would always want you to do when you start this 5D process is you need to go through and underline and circle any key information, keywords. So why don't you push pause and do that on your note sheet. Push play when you're ready. All right, some keywords that I see are the perimeter of the rectangle is 120 feet. That is important. We need to know that. Now, another key sentence is that the length is 10 feet more than the width. All right, the length is 10 feet more than the width. That is very important as well. Then it says how long are the sides of the rectangle. So basically, I want to find the length and the width. So the very first step in the 5D process is for you to draw a picture. So if I'm working with a rectangle, I'm going to go ahead and start by drawing a rectangle. All right, now I know I have a length and a width. Now let's kind of see what it says. It says the length is 10 feet more than the width. Now what you need to do is you need to think, which one do I need to figure out the other one? Which one do I need to know to figure out the other one? So if the length is 10 more than the width, I need to know the width first. So if I don't know the width, I can just call it W. I'll call that W. Now the length, that's this other side, is 10 feet more than the width. Well, I know that more than means I'm going to add. So if it's 10 feet more than the width, I'm going to have W plus 10. Now if this is a rectangle, if this side's W, I know this side is also W. And if this side up here is W plus 10, so is this side. Okay, so that's my very first step, is to draw a picture. One more important thing is that they told me that the whole perimeter is 120 feet. I'm just going to write that down for now. All right, so once you have your picture drawn, here's kind of what the 5D chart looks like. So your very first thing that you're going to see on this chart at the top is a describe draw space. So you always want to just draw your picture up in this space. Sometimes there's not a picture, but here's what my picture looked like. I had my rectangle. Here was my width. It was W. And my length was W plus 10 and W plus 10 down here. All right, over in this spot, you also need to write any other important information in these bullet points. So the other important information that I know is my perimeter is 120 feet. So I'm going to write that down there. Okay, once you have your picture drawn and your important information written down, now you're going to come down to this table. The very first thing you need to do is come to this define spot. So here's what you are going to put in this column. So you need to think, well, how many things am I trying to find? Well, I'm trying to find the width and the length. So in this column, or in this area, I'm going to split this into 2 spots. So I'm going to draw a line down, right down the middle. I split it into 2 spots. because I need to find the length and the width. Now, you always want to list the thing that you need to know first to find the other one. So in order to find the length, I have to know the width. So I'm going to list width first, and then I'm going to list length. Now, right underneath it, I'm going to actually put, what do I have for my width? Well, my width is, I called W. I'll just put that right underneath it. And my length, I called W plus 10. So I'll put that right underneath there. Okay, so that's your next step. All right, now let's move over to our next column that says do. This is where you actually have to figure out, well, what do I need to do to solve this problem? Well, I'm working with perimeter. So you guys know that perimeter means you're going all the way around the outside, and I'm adding all of the sides. So here I'm going to actually list what I'm going to do. I'm going to add all 4 sides. That's my do step. So underneath it, I'm actually going to show me adding all 4 of these sides. So I have W, I'll list that, plus the bottom, which is W plus 10, plus the other side, which is W, plus the top, W plus 10. Okay, so that's my next step. That's my do step. And then your last column says decide. That means, what do you need it to equal? Well, I need my perimeter to equal, so I'm just going to put equal 120. So my answer needs to be 120. All right, after I do this, usually I come down here and I just draw a line kind of separating that. Now, your next step is kind of like guessing and checking. So over here, you're going to see some little labels that say trial 1, trial 2, trial 3. Here's where you're going to just kind of start guessing numbers, plugging them in, and seeing if it works. So what you need to do is you need to just pick a random number, and you always want to start with, what do you need to know to figure out the other? Now, I need to know the width to get the length, so I'm going to pick any number I want for width. Let's say I choose 5. Okay, so I'm going to put a 5 down. Now I'm going to come to the length, and I'm going to figure out, well, what would my length be? Well, if I plugged a 5 in for my width, it's 10 more. So it'd be 5 plus 10, which gives me 15. Okay, now the do part says add all 4 sides. So think, if it's perimeter, I need my 5 plus 5, that's the 2 sides, plus 15 plus 15. I need to see what that equals. Well, here's where you can use a calculator if you want. So 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 15 is 25, plus another 15 is 40. That equals 40. Okay, now you need to look at that. 40, is that 120? No. So I did not do this right, and my guess is way too low. 40 is way lower than 120. So I'm going to put like a check or a no, and I'm going to say it was too low. My guess was too low. Okay, since that answer was too low, I need to choose something higher. Now, 40 was not even close to 120, so I want to choose something a lot higher than 5. So if I chose 5, maybe let's try 15 instead. So if my width is 15, let's come over to my length. My length is 10 more than that. So 15 plus 10, that's 25. Now I'm going to come to my do column. I need to add my 4 sides. Well, my width is 15 plus the other side, plus the top, plus the bottom. Now I just have to see what that equals. So I'm going to do 15 plus 15 plus 25 plus 25, and that equals 80. Okay, that is not right, again, too low. So that means I need to guess higher. So maybe I'll try 25. Okay, so I'm going to list 25 now. So if my width is 25, my length would be 25 plus 10 more, which is 35. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here again. I'm going to add my sides, 25, 25, plus 35, plus 35. Okay, and let's see what that equals. That actually equals 120. So I got my answer correct. Okay, I finally got it to be just right. All right, so now your last step in the 5D process is to declare your answer. That means you're going to come down to the bottom and write your answer in a sentence. So my answer to this problem is, you might have to go back and read it, but it was, what's the length and what's the width? So I'm going to say the width of the rectangle is, and then I'm going to look at my chart, see what I got. Looks like I got 25 feet, so I'm going to say is 25 feet. And the length is, I'm going to see what my length was. It was 35 feet. And I just declared my answer. All right, so that's what the 5D process looks like. It's kind of like a guess and check problem, and then we kind of use a table. We draw a picture, we define some variables, we do, and we decide. So that's how the 5D process works. Please put a smiley face by your name on the front of this note sheet.